right, we'll do the beginning from the end, if that makes sense. I just finished my podcast with Tyler and Brittany, Little River Holdings, and obviously the topic of conversation was the Gateway Project, but at the beginning, what you'll hear a lot of is all of the other entities, businesses, LLCs that the tribe operates, owns, and runs. And it's pretty awesome. I mean, good on the tribe. So there was a lot of information in this podcast. I do encourage you that if you have interest in knowing what is going on with the Gateway Project, listen to the whole thing. There's a lot of great information that comes out of this. And there are some gaps where we are kind of trying to move into certain directions. So there might be some pauses, but it was good. It was really good. The things that I wanted to touch on were tax revenue, housing, and job creation, which, in my opinion, just within 5 minutes of them leaving, the podcast ending, my quick reflection on what we talked about, I think they nailed it, really. I mean, Tyler did a really good job of explaining taxable capture and what is coming back to the city as far as revenue with respect to taxes. And I think it's still a pretty decent fucking nut for the city. So that, coupled with upwards of almost 100 new jobs in the world of hospitality, which is a bonus. I mean, they're new jobs. So whatever you think about, like, the level that these jobs are, that's almost 100 new jobs for the community. So if there are people out there that are looking for some extra scratch, looking for a job, there's going to be one available soon. Timeline, we talked about timeline, that first phase, which is going to be the creation of the housing side of things, and that's going to start here within the next few months. So this year, ground is going to break on that, and then as that phase begins to get closer to completion, they're going to start building the hotel side of things, and also a restaurant chain coming that they're a part of, and I think that's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, things to keep in mind before you start listening to the podcast, but I think you're going to enjoy it. If you're somebody who's got, even just a little bit of mental investment on what's going on that corner of River Street, they really do a good job, in my opinion, of kind of explaining the inception to where they are today and what they have to wait for to, finally put shovel to dirt and get moving. Are all your questions answered in this podcast? I don't know. The ones that I had were answered, and I accepted the answers. I think they did a really good job. So check it out. Let's do it. This episode is brought to you by Brandon Ball, broker owner of Dwelling Realty, Keller Williams, Northern Michigan. Are you looking to sell your home? Then look no further. When you list your home with Brandon Ball, you'll get a trusted advisor who will guide you through the entire selling process. With extensive knowledge of the local market, he'll help price your home competitively to attract the right buyers. And with proven marketed strategies, your home will be seen by the most qualified of buyers. With 17 years in the business, you'll have someone experienced who's on your side. Contact Brandon today to get started selling your home. 231-690-4981. That's 231-690-4981. Or Brandon at dwellingrealty.com. All right, well, let's dive into it. Let's go ahead and get some introductions out of the way. I would say probably, how about ladies first?
Sure.
Just tell everybody who you are and what your role is in this in terms of the Gateway Project, and we'll go from there.
I'm Brittany Drake, citizen of the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians. I've been with Little River Holdings for going on 3 years next month. I guess my capacity has been the business analyst, and I kind of help oversee with the project team different aspects of the Gateway project to make sure things are moving along, and I guess share some of my ideas to be incorporated.
So you're a member of the tribe here in Manistee?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that right away. You, sir.
My name's Tyler Lepinen. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Little River Holdings, which is the parent company that has the Gateway project going on that we're here to talk about.
So what is Little River Holdings?
Little River Holdings is the Economic Development Corporation, or company rather, for the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians. And within that we have 7 subsidiary companies, and I think 4 now second-tier subsidiary companies. And within the 7 subsidiary companies, we cover a range of different economies. For instance, we have Little River Government Contracting. We've got real estate management. Let's see, what else do we have? We got a procurement company. And then, what am I missing? I know I'm missing something.
A few things, but yeah, on so Little River Holdings, the tribe formed the company in 2018, January 2018, and then it started off with initial investments in nutraceutical patent and trade secrets related to proteins mixed with cherries. So any ground protein, you could throw the cherries into it. It's supposed to be healthier, cheaper, because cherries cost less than meat. The nutraceutical was researched at Central Michigan University for better part of a decade. Had a couple papers published on its efficacy in delaying the onset of Alzheimer's. Has not moved out of animal trials though, so that's was the initial investment. The next investment was Odino, which is a subdivision in Fruitport, Michigan. It's 262 lots. We've currently sold over 150 of those lots. And then real estate development has a number of other activities. We have our low-income housing tax credits. So tribes are able to get an additional 5 points on these applications for this public incentive that other developers are not able to get. Little River Holdings was actually the first entity to ever be awarded those points off of a tribe's reservation or trust area in Michigan's history. Our senior executive, Eugene, likes to try to claim the first in the country, but there's a tribe in Iowa that would dispute that. So since we did our first project, which was Hillcrest in Manistee, a 45-unit apartment complex, that the ribbon cutting was in October 2022. Since that time, we've won 7 additional projects. Is that
Yep.
7? Yeah. So we're able to provide housing throughout West Michigan and the tribe service area, all the way to the furthest south point of the 9-county area, which is Holland. We broke ground in Grand Rapids in November, and then we've closed on 3 projects in Muskegon since December.
I believe, yeah, December.
Yeah, so in the last 45 days. And then after Little River Development, there's Little River Government Contracting. So that's a company that does facility maintenance and construction, a number of various opportunities with the federal government. Tribes are able to be certified as 8A companies. Yeah. And the tribal 8As are usually called like super 8As. So 8A companies are women and minority-owned businesses, but tribes have further advantages with contracting with the federal government. My mouth is really dry right now.
I asked you if you want a water,
Yeah,
dog.
I could definitely use the water, but sorry to interrupt.
No.
You can clip this out.
Like,
Brittany, would you like some water?
I think I'm good.
can't even move my tongue.
Give a little love to the box water company, you know, 'cause
Thank you.
Anything's better than nothing.
So before you continue,
Yeah.
one of the thoughts that I had while you were going, is this Little River Holdings, was it completely separate from the Little River Band? Or is it something that the Little River Band created?
Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to take it?
It is separate, but yes, it was something that Little River Band created to create revenues away from or outside of the gaming industry to help support and provide for the next 7 generations.
Okay.
Did you catch that?
Yeah,
Repeat.
I think I caught that.
Okay.
So the Little River Holdings was doing nothing until the Little River Band created it.
Correct.
Yes.
Really? Okay. So I think that's where some of the confusion comes in sometimes. And even when I'm trying, with what limited knowledge I have of the Gateway Project or Little River Holdings, I thought that Little River Holdings was contracted by the tribe
Oh.
to come in because
Interesting.
Yeah,
My-
it is interesting.
some of the conversations that I've been a part of, both with questions and answers amongst people who don't know, and I'm in that category, okay, that I don't know, that Little River Holdings was doing projects in other states for other tribes, and it was something that Little River was like, oh.
No,
maybe you guys can
definitely
come
the
in.
Yes.
Economic Development Corporation for the Little River Band of Ottawa
Yeah.
Indians.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said it's definitely the Economic Development Corporation for the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting to conceptualize the entire kind of tribal space.
Yeah.
So, on the slides that I had sent you, and it had a comparison between the tribal government, which is elected executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch of the citizens. So just like we elect a governor and then a separate state legislature. And then they also, the tribal government has its own operations, police force, water and utility departments, and then they obviously created the Little River Casino Resort. So they're the owner of Little River Casino Resort, and that has a gaming commission and it has an advisory board as well. And then you have Little River Holdings. So if you're looking at like an org chart, you have the government, you have the citizens that elect the government. The government is able to then own gaming operations, and then they have, if you follow the comparison through with the state of Michigan, they're the state, right? So when we create an LLC, our LLC is not registered with the state of Michigan. It's registered with the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians under their laws that they passed. So it's a LLC created under the laws of the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians and also owned by the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians.
Did you get that?
It'd be like the state of Michigan creating a company
Yeah.
and running it, right? And we all participated in that by voting for our elected officials. I think that's the best way I can.
No, I get it.
can
I completely
conceptualize that,
understand. Yeah, because like I said, and I think a lot of people thought, which is why this is great, that it was that you like, I thought, and I should have asked you this years ago when we were like, putting together those commercials and stuff for everything.
yeah.
I was like, I should have asked you then, but I just assumed, and I think a lot of people
Yes,
assume
yeah.
that, the company that you work for was a separate entity that was hired by the tribe to come in. And this is a great opportunity for not only myself, but everybody that's listening, that this is the tribe,
That
which I think is
correct.
rad. But, I mean, I honestly was like, oh, they're paying Tyler and his company that you work for to come up with all these things. And, that there's liaisons from the tribe that are working with you, but that's not it at all. It's the tribe. So, does it make sense to everybody? I'm going to pull up a couple of things while we're moving here and make sure my phone is on silent. But, so, do we want to dive right into the Gateway project, or, because we can always circle back to all the things that the holding company is into, like, I do want to talk about,
quickly run
like,
through them. I mean, usually I'm a little bit faster on it. My mouth's just.
no, that's
super dry,
okay,
but
because one of the things, I've got, like,
Brittany can tell you I'm pretty used to listing off
Yes,
everything.
absolutely.
we're doing.
Eugene has him doing that.
yeah,
pretty much every other day.
I gotta go way back. There were so many questions that came through, but, when that newspaper article came out recently, in the News Advocate, people don't tend to read. They just read the title of
Yeah.
the article and then start blasting their shit into the into it. But I read it. I thought it made a ton of sense. I'm excited for the project. I think a lot of people are. I think this is great that you guys are coming on here to talk about this, because so many times people are just like, what the hell is going on down there at that intersection? The banners and the emptiness, and there's nothing moving. But if I'm correct, so 97 hotel rooms, 47 condo apartments, rooftop bar, rooftop pool, 150-person conference center, 2 retail spaces, office space for businesses, which is a nice move, by the way. 210 public parking spots. We don't need parking. Can you fill that up with something else?
Well, a lot of that parking is going to service the uses of the
Sure.
gateway, right? So, and a lot of it's calculated by planning and zoning. So like if you have a conference space of 150 seats, you have to be able to park X amount of cars.
So where'd the concept come from the Gateway project? Let's start there and then move to where we are today.
Okay.
If
You don't
there's an
want us to finish
evolution-
up on the overview?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have some pretty cool shit.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I ended with government contracting. So we have currently 11 active contracts. The company has completed a few more, so 15 active and completed contracts. But so the company is able to use all the owner's experience in the 8A program. So the fact that the tribe has a police force was how we were able to get our first contract, was a armed guard contract with FEMA. And then we've had several construction-related projects with the ATF, Customs Border Patrol on kennels for dogs, different renovations. And then we've had our first significant contract was a 5-year contract with the U.S. Army Museum in D.C. So it's the janitorial and artifact maintenance contract. So every Saturday, Brittany has to run down to Washington, D.C. with a feather duster and make sure the artifacts are taken care of. But the first time ever that all the medals of honor that were given out on D-Day were being handled by Little River Band of Ottawa Indians, essentially by a company created by them that has that contract. So I think that's a pretty cool honor that the tribe has. And then beyond the government contracting stuff, we have a company Native Source Procurement Services that has an exclusive contract for with Integra, which is a subsidiary of Sodexo, which is a $1 billion company. They do
Multi-billion-dollar.
contract contract management, food service. They compete with companies like Airmark, if you're familiar with that, prison food service, university food service, things like that. It's a $30-some billion company. So they get large purchasing power, right? Like the Walmart effect. They buy a lot of it, they can get better pricing on it. So we have an exclusive agreement with them to offer their pricing to any tribally owned entity in the U.S. and Canada. So if we sign them up and then they purchase food, anything through Sodexo with the better pricing, then we get a percentage of that. And then we also have, in 2022, we obtained the rights to Wahlburgers restaurants on any land that's tribally owned, and that includes trust reservation or fee land, which if Little River Holdings buys land somewhere, that's considered fee land. So, and that again is for the entire U.S. and we have the right to own and operate a location, and then we also have the right to sell the franchise and collect royalties. So we currently have 4 restaurants opening, one opening the first week of February. All the way from, well, we have, our first one was Into the Mountain Gods in New Mexico. And then our second one was Chicken Ranch Casino in Jamestown, California. And then Wahlburgers had an underperforming franchisee in Cleveland, downtown Cleveland, and took the franchise from them. And we were able to take that location over in downtown Cleveland. That
Right
would be
by the Dodgers Stadium and that, so it's a pretty nice location.
Yeah, if the Dodgers were in Cleveland.
Or not the Dodgers. It is the Dodgers, isn't it?
Oh, the Indians?
They're not
Are
the
they called
Indians anymore. I think Guardians.
I don't do sport.
Is it
I
the
don't watch
Guardians?
baseball.
Oh,
Oh, that's, we're gonna sound like idiots. That might
we
cut
obviously
this
do
part.
not know our baseball.
We don't do
teams.
sports on this podcast.
Not baseball.
Jesus
Not
Christ.
baseball.
Cleveland.
Commanders, the football team. I think they changed their name. No, I was thinking about Washington. See, now we're being dumb. Let's skip this.
Okay.
But we get it.
But yeah, so we have 4 opening our 5th one. We actually own and operate in a location in California as well, at Gold Country Casino and Resort. And then once we got this deal executed, we launched it that summer in Las Vegas at the National Indian Gaming Association conference with Mark Wahlberg, and we were awarded the Chairman's Business Leader of the Year award for Little River Holdings with Mark Wahlberg on stage. It was pretty cool, and we were on the Mark had a show called Wall Street, Season 2, Episode 6. See me for about half a second
Go check it out.
on HBO, but
Looked like you belong in Entourage.
yeah, well, he comes with his whole entourage too. And then beyond that, we also formed a tribal utility company. So we're able to provide electric service to other tribally owned entities. And we're currently servicing one contract right now, and we have another contract to bring on our first tribal casino in California, which I don't know if you knew this, but casinos spend a lot of money on electricity.
I'm sure.
That's a given. They're
Yeah.
open 24/7 and all those gaming machines, I can imagine.
I can imagine it's pretty high. That's amazing.
So yeah, over the entire country, we have on the government contracts and in the restaurants, we have over 200 employees, from California to El Paso, Texas, to Virginia, to Rhode Island, to we had a contract on Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota at one point. So.
Oh, for real? I was
Yeah.
stationed there in the Air Force.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
It's cold up there, dude.
Yeah.
It's cold. I swear to God, they put me there just because I'm from Northern Michigan.
He can handle it.
It sucked.
So I guess we can get back onto the topic at hand.
Yeah. Well, I
guys
mean,
can-
I should say, though, that's pretty remarkable. So obviously, this is a
And
huge
that's
impact.
all done in a matter of what? Going on 6 years in operation, so I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
It's huge. And a good revenue stream from all angles for the tribe.
Yep.
So that's really amazing. Is there going to build a golf course or no?
Well, we own one, the one out in Bear Lake.
In Bear Lake, yeah. For years, it was always going to be the orchard next to the casino. People would say, "Oh, they're going to put one there."
Something will eventually go there, but I'm not sure it's going to be a golf course.
Yeah, so let's hammer on the topic at hand, the Gateway Project.
Yeah, so the Gateway project has been viewed, and we've came to the conclusion that it makes sense to do it in 2 phases. So phase 1 will start on I think the north side, and
South side.
or the south side, yes, and that's going to include 47 apartment studios, 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms, 8 townhouse units across the top of the parking structure. I think the top, or I guess the front of it, the
Yeah,
front of
so
the
when
parking
you're
structure.
Walking down River Street, you
So
don't
that way
just
it-
have a whole block
of parking.
parking.
It made sense to put something in the front of that, so that way it doesn't, just concrete parking.
Can
So-
I interject for 1 second?
Yep.
I thought the initial, is this evolved since the
Oh, yeah.
beginning? Okay,
Oh,
So
yeah.
what do you
Okay.
consider the beginning?
So when the first concepts came out, right, when the pictures and everything of the initial concept that came out, where you're talking, where the apartments, and condos are going to go, I thought that was going to be like a welcome visitor center.
That would have been on the other corner, and there was some
That would have
discussion
been on
of
the
that,
south
but
side, yep.
yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, is the south side right now.
Yep,
So but that's scrapped now.
yes.
Okay.
There's no longer a visitor center in there.
Yeah, that didn't make it out of the initial stages.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after the townhouse units, there'll be 2 retail spaces, and then office spaces, and then obviously the parking structure. And then phase 2 on the north side has 93 hotel units, including a rooftop bar, swimming pool, conference space, and then a Wahlburgers restaurant on River Street in 31.
That was going to be one of my next questions, is Wahlberg's coming?
And a venue that will honor and respect the tribe, that is like immersive or like interactive. I guess we can kind of like incorporate some of like the AI features, so that way like old chiefs and different things, you can kind of like scroll through them versus just staring at something
pretty
in a
cool.
glass case. And then I guess this is just, the gateway itself is very complex, but we're excited about it, and it's going to create, an improved entry for the downtown of Manistee. It's going to make people want to turn left, if you will. And then there's going to be 80 to 95, are these full-time employees?
Yes.
Full-time employee positions. 32,000 visitors per year, we anticipate. A potential for up to 120 people living downtown. That's a pretty big deal. And then obviously the tax revenue that it will create for directly for the public infrastructure improvements. And then Tyler can add any that he wants to.
Yeah, which that's actually a good point to bring up here as well, because I think frequent misconception is, the land that the tribe owns is non-taxable, and so anything that is purchased by an entity of the tribe is a bad thing for the community, is kind of the way it's perceived, you know what I mean? But if it's not trust land, which means the U.S. federal government is holding that land in trust on behalf of the tribe, it's considered fee land, and that is taxable. So, yeah, I just wanted to.
That's a big chunk of tax for the city.
Absolutely.
That's a huge chunk of tax.
Now, a lot of it is going to be captured within the brownfield, but it's going to pay for public infrastructure and different things like that as well.
So the retail spaces that you spoke on, Brittany, that's basically just going to be like, hey, we're going to build this space and try to encourage people to put a business in it.
Correct,
You don't
and then
have it.
I'll touch base on one of the spaces on kind of what we've been building out and possibly placing in one of those. It's pretty
Okay.
exciting.
Can we talk about that right now, or just?
Sure, if you want, we can.
Maybe we could get our electric company hooked up with you to turn up the heat.
I keep it at a nice, it's 68 degrees in here, man.
Yeah, you're funny. So, yeah, so I believe it's right here on the, would be the corner of Division and River Street, that little corner commercial space or whatever.
Yep.
That we plan on, we're in the process of creating like an annual business competition for, to support Little River Band of Ottawa Indian citizens and descendants. A new tenant each year with no rent and business support, I guess, kind of to help them grow their first year, and then we can kind of assist them with a relocation, whether it be, you know, somewhere else or even another location downtown, or maybe there's a different type of area we can squeeze them in within one of our subsidiary companies. But yeah,
So
I guess,
it'll be like a rotating business every year.
yep.
Okay.
And then we, you know, it'll be like a business competition type deal that we'll be announcing hopefully in the spring, so.
Now, do you think that's sustainable?
To continue doing it each
Yeah.
year? Yeah, I do. I was the DDA
idea.
director
Yep.
with Spark Manistee when we created that, and, you know, a lot of people questioned that at the time, but we plan on it being open to tribal citizens and descendants, so there's is it just under 4,000?
It's just under
citizens now?
4,000 citizens, but when you incorporate the descendants, can
It's
probably get up
large. I guess
near.
what my question is, do you think it's sustainable to rotate
Each year?
that particular location versus doing the competition annually, which I think would be great, and help those people find places with the competition instead of rotating them out of one location?
Well, part of it is we have a commercial retail space available that, if you have a secured long-term tenant there, that looks better for the banks as well,
I
right?
agree.
So, you know, that's one aspect of it. And then also, when we're looking at the mission and purpose of Little River Holdings and expanding the tribe's economy, the citizens are part of that economy as well. And I kind of have the same perspective on it that I did with the DDA, and creating a culture around entrepreneurialism is just as important as trying to attract new major employers or providing incentives for business and economic development. You know, when people have that entrepreneur kind of mindset, they're more likely to start up. You know, if they start up one, they're going to start up five, and you're an example of that, right? I also view it as an opportunity where if they need to continue growing and they need capital and they need equity, there's potential that we would be able to fill that gap as well. And then that could be like a micro investment portfolio for us.
I think maybe I'm not making sense. I think it's a great idea. I think I'm 100% on board. I think a lot of people would be 100% on board with this concept. I was just thinking more in terms of you win, you get put in this location, but then you got to be out in a year.
It is kind of a quick turnaround for people
know,
to get settled and whatnot.
Yeah, by the
Instead
time
of-
you get settled, it seems like, oh, I've got maybe 6 months left and I gotta get out of here.
But the whole point is to be like an incubator. And most business incubators, I mean, you don't stay there forever. That's the whole point, is to accelerate and get out.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm 100% on board with with that competition and kind of building that out.
Eventually, it would definitely take a lot more administrative and staff time than the capacity that we currently have available. But that's the way we seem to do everything, is get it started, get it flowing, then
Piece it
you
together later
bring
on.
on the rest of the operations. So,
I get it. These are large-scale projects. They take a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
So where are we at here with the process?
We ended with the, like the tax revenues that the Gateway project could provide. And then I think we could probably start going over some of the housing, the demand.
Well, I don't know, I'm here to get interviewed. Did you have questions or anything?
Yeah, I mean,
specific?
we're hitting on everything. I mean, the housing is, so I mean, obviously everybody's been like jobs. Sounds like there's going to be a pretty good amount of jobs, and I would assume tribal preference would come first. Yep,
Yep.
which makes sense. And then with the housing, is it going to be accessible to all incomes, or is it going to be just, here's the price of the apartments, here's the price of the condos, and let's try to fill these up?
Wait,
So I think a lot of the questions that I've been getting in terms of the housing aspect of this is how affordable are they going to be?
well, you know.
It's a tough question to-
Affordability is all relative on what people think is affordable, but the market rate in Manistee is not any more significant, like it's not any different than 120% of the area median income, which is what MISTA, the Michigan State Housing and Development Authority, bases affordability on. Our market rates aren't much higher than the affordable rates anyway. So we're not looking to overshoot the market and not be able to fill up the units. So we know we have to be able to build the units at a certain cost, to be able to rent them out at a certain rate, because that's what's available in the market. And that's exactly the reason, in a very simplified way, of why grants and public incentives exist in the first place, right?
Right.
To address that problem. And especially in Manistee, because you have an area that's relatively isolated from, other major metro areas, just by geography, and highways and different things like that. And you have, on a project of this scale, but pretty much any project, you're going to have to draw in contractors and subcontractors from Muskegon, Traverse City area and whatnot. And they're not, coming up for free.
Right.
So there's the added cost to the construction in Manistee. And then also there's lower revenue potential as well. So you're going to, you're more likely to make less and have it cost more. That's not a good formula for success. So,
Is there a bidding process for the work that's going to be done in terms of contractors? I know I had a few reach out to me, and I said that I would bring it up if there was going to be any local contractors used. We don't have to drop any names. But
since there are public grants involved and different things like that, we'll have to follow the same process that the entities funding the project would require us to.
So bids. Is there a place to go for these contractors to submit a bid for any of the work, or has that process already been done?
No, not currently yet.
But you're looking at breaking ground this summer.
Quarter three.
Okay. So what is that? September, October, November?
December, November, October is quarter four, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we already have construction management and things like that under contract, so they'll be managing the bid process moving forward.
So I assume that you did some, you had some companies come in and do surveys or whatever to say that, yeah, this city can have this size hotel additionally to some of the new hotels that have come up, like the Hampton down there. And
These have been going.
obviously there's a need for housing.
Oh, yeah.
So you get that box checked. But as far as like the hotel goes, a lot of people are like, we don't need another hotel.
Sure.
I mean, I think we do. I mean, I pretty much live downtown.
That research has
I
been-
know that we need
and
hotels.
I do always enjoy discussing the economic situation with people and whatnot, but and I think even the housing issue does need to be talked about whether we agree here sitting at the table, there's a lot of people that on comments and things like that you see all the time of questioning it. But we believe, based on our experience in the market, which is, building the largest apartment complex that's probably been built in Manistee in a number of years, being Hillcrest, with 45 units. I can't think of another one bigger. And then, just having been the DDA director in the past, and then we have TF Taxiatis as our brownfield consultant, who was the city's brownfield consultant for, I don't know, 80 years. So there's some understanding of the local market, right? But then there's also a ton of publicly available housing studies that have been done over and over and over again, and anyone can access those from Networks Northwest. And since 2016, that's when I moved to Manistee, following the housing data and what everybody keeps talking about as far as economic development agencies in the area, is that there was a demand back then, and we still haven't met it, and we don't continue to meet the number of units that need to be added to the market each year, which is why you start to see rental rates jump up. But we also interviewed local employers and their HR departments for what their housing needs are of current employees, and what their future hiring and expected salaries might be. So based on all that, we think the housing would be absorbed quite well. And I know I sent you my notes before, but have a lot of information on there. Is, people, the first thing I think you hear a lot from people that aren't heavily involved in understanding what's going on in the local economy is, I don't see anything different in my personal life. There hasn't been a major employer that relocated here that needs to hire 500 people, right? So where is this demand coming from? If we don't have a mass amount of people coming in all at once. But the population has increased very slightly since 2010 to 2020, and the projections aren't showing a huge growth in population in Manistee. It's flat at best, a couple margin points there. But incomes are expected to increase 12%, and households with incomes over $50,000 median average are expected to grow at a faster rate than lower income household segments in the market, with the fastest growing income segment being the $50,000 to $75,000 households. So when we're looking at population increases, you're only looking at the net increase, but populations and demographics in a community are never static. There's people coming in and there's people leaving the community all the time. So, and you can tell that just in the incomes. Why are there income brackets that are growing at a faster rate if there's no change in the number of people here or who is here, right? And it's a statewide issue, really, because the age of our workforce in the entire state, and definitely Manistee, continues to get older. And I think the average age of an employee in our manufacturing base here is close to 48 years old on average. So they're going to keep retiring at faster rates. Now, our unemployment rate is under 5%, which that's normal or good unemployment rate. So where do you get these employees from? You're not getting them from the local area. And when somebody retires, they don't necessarily leave the community just because they leave the workforce. So you have the same number of people staying put, and you're trying to bring in more people to replace them. And And I don't know how often you look at housing options in Manistee, but it's not exciting if you're moving here.
I mean, I'm addicted to Zillow.
Yeah, I religiously look there.
Yeah.
I'm not even looking for a house, but I don't know, it's
Yeah.
just a thing.
Yeah, we're always trying to figure out what our next move is going to be.
So just to maintain what our employers in the area, our major manufacturers are doing, and they've been saying this since 2016, since that's my point of reference, right? That they need housing to house their employees they need to hire because their workforce is retiring.
Yep.
And it seems like there's a resistance to want to accept that fact, and I don't understand where that comes from. But.
I mean, I do. I'll say it. I mean, I think a lot of people that get a little pissy about housing are in a age category that's close to retirement. But I do see a decrease in terms of population. And what I mean by that is, obviously Manistee is a small community, the city, okay? I graduated high school at close to 200 students, which is massive for this area, all right? My daughter graduated last year and they had 88 kids graduate. So what that tells me is the population is getting older.
There's less children.
And there's less kids here, which means that, people aren't moving here to either start a family or to bring their kids with them. And
They're coming when they
That's a
retire. Is
problem.
what,
well, and then when they retire here years ago, they would sell their house and
then
go
go
live in the
south.
place in Florida that they had been going in the wintertime.
Yep.
And they're not doing that now. They're keeping it. I know people, and it drives me fucking nuts, that have 2 houses in this community, and they don't even rent the one that they're not staying in. They just kind of use it when they have family or something come up. It drives me crazy, bro. Drives me crazy.
Yeah, especially with the need.
Well, that and
well, you
coupled
could
with the
throw it up
hospital,
on Airbnb, they'll make a lot more money. Though.
they would.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. There's the capitalist side of me that's like, I can't begrudge somebody for making a little scratch if they've got a place that they can rent out. But the problem is that we have also, some people aren't going to agree with this, but our real estate is cheaper than in other communities. So people with a little bit extra we're buying houses here and using them for a source of income. So it's kind of been messy, and I know the city's working on it.
But looking at the other aspects of the Gateway project, we've actually had 3 market feasibility studies completed. So we had one done at the initial time period that you were talking about. There was another one for the plan for a flagged hotel at that spot. It was lower end brand of the market. And then we had a third market study that was just updated from probably in 23 or 24. It would have been completed. I don't recall exactly, but and even in the initial market study, at one point there was discussion of Little River Holdings looking at another hotel opportunity with a brand like Holiday Inn Express, or that level of hotel. So when we even initially started looking at the Gateway project, we had told the consultants to assume another 100-room hotel was coming online. So all 3 market studies were already, making that assumption. So I think that addresses the question of whether we've done any studies since Hampton Inn or not. The other piece of it is they are different hotel products, right? Not every hotel product is the same. Not everybody that's going to stay at the downtown location want to go gamble at the casino resort. Not everybody that goes to the casino resort is going to want to come downtown, right? And I think the main thing people are looking at, which is a real concern when you're, starting a business in hospitality and whatnot, is the seasonality of the local economy. And, you're pretty much at maximum capacity for 3, maybe 4 months of the year. shoulder seasons are starting to get better, and the tourism industry in Michigan is projecting the shoulder seasons, fall and spring, to continue improving. But the real challenge is in winter, obviously, when it's cold and I'm shivering at your desk. But I think we are, anticipating that. We're working on designing the spaces to be able to expand in the summertime and then contract in the wintertime. So the rooftop bar, for example.
Right.
The whole deck space wouldn't be open all year long. And then with the Wahlburgers,
That's good. Is that gonna be on location or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
yeah, it'd be at the corner of River Street and 31, essentially.
And then won't there be a small, like, service upstairs on the rooftop?
It's not going to be Wahlburgers.
Oh,
It's
okay.
going to be a
Like a bar?
self-branded bar, yeah.
Okay.
But the Wahlburgers, since in our agreement, our franchise agreement, as the master franchisee for Wahlburgers, we have to open our own training location. So we plan on opening 4 locations a year. And in the agreement, they are required to send at least 3 employees for 6 weeks on location to train, and then they have to pay for that stay as well. And that accounts for, if we're doing that many employees for that long of a period of time, that accounts for 500 nights of annual hotel stays. So we'll obviously try to schedule and drive that in the wintertime, which not great for the sub-franchisees training at the location, but that's one way we can address the wintertime challenges with that. And then the conference space, 150 people isn't like enormous, but it's enough that you can, book small
activities.
associations and things like that to have conferences there. We go to a conference once a year called Native Nations. It's Native Nations, the organization, but they have an annual, what is it called, Gaming and Hospitality Conference in April. It's not super big membership, but there's people there that are looking to work with each other and other tribally owned businesses, and it's a pretty effective group, and it's it's around 100 people, but if you're actively booking those
Yeah.
spaces,
No, I think
you can fill up
that's a great size. I mean, you guys obviously have a massive convention center out at the resort, which is utilized a lot for the bigger things, but we do have I would say we have a need for something a little bit smaller for what Tyler's talking about. I think that's great.
Oh, and just because a light bulb went off, I remembered on the Wahlburgers side, since we're having those trainees there, they're experienced restaurant workers. They're the management level people coming, but they still have to learn the whole Wahlburgers system. So we get pretty good help, with cheap labor there. So we'd be able to supplement staffing issues and things like that in our restaurant. So
And then like some
creates
of
a lot
the
of advantages. being
other
able to do
areas
that.
too to kind of offset the off season would be like, I don't know, trying to partner with ski resorts or, like snowmobile rentals or something like that. And then finding different ways that to create synergies between, the Gateway Project and the casino. I'm sure there's opportunities in all of those different areas. Everybody experiences these things, but you gotta get creative.
You got to get creative. Speaking of creativity, have
Yep.
you guys, I would assume, but I don't like to do that. You working with Manistee Tourism and as far as like marketing, eventual marketing, stuff like that? It's probably very in its infancy right now with them, but.
Once it's operating and once we get closer to, making announcements and different things like that, I'm sure the actual project team, working on it day to day, we'll address that.
You said how many jobs initially? It was like just under 100?
80 to 95. is the
95
Those are
full-time.
full-time.
Yep.
How many part-time, do you know?
Well, yep. Well, it's FTEs, right? It's full-time equivalents. I couldn't give you a figure on the part-time numbers.
Yeah, that's still a decent amount.
And
That's a
those
lot.
jobs created, they're good quality, good paying, hospitality jobs too, so.
Yeah, no shade.
And if you get in
You
the
know?
Wahlburger franchise, like Tyler mentioned, you could even branch out and possibly make a career path elsewhere, in the franchise world.
Now,
so.
would that Wahlburgers be a Wahlburgers that somebody could purchase as part of the franchise? Like, could somebody come in and say, hey, I want to buy this location?
It'd be corporate owned,
Okay.
Yeah.
more than likely.
And, well, it's on tribal-owned land because Little River Holdings owns the land, but remember, our franchising rights extend to on tribally owned land in the U.S. and Canada.
It's good stuff. Do they have a veggie burger?
They have one of those plant-based
Yeah,
burgers.
I
the
feel
Beyond
like
Burger.
they do, yeah.
Oh, good. Good. I can eat there.
I'd say that was one of the
I'm
only
vegetarian,
things
that's
I haven't tried on the menu yet.
Well,
let
the
me-
first time I went to Wahlburgers and we were out in Las Vegas, I didn't even get a burger. I got a salad, and I always kick myself in the butt for that. I'm like, why? Everybody, brags up the burgers, and I had a salad, but it was just the time of day. I didn't want that heavy burger, so.
I mean, the longer that we sit here and talk, the more excited I am about the project. I mean, I think more and more people should be excited about it. It seems like it's hitting on all the hot buttons, tax revenue, check. We're going to do that. You're creating a shitload of jobs, check. The research is there for the need for the hotel. Obviously, the need for the housing is there. So I don't
And you
think
get,
it's
like,
a
the vibe
losing
of-
proposition. Right now, there's nothing there.
I think
Exactly,
a
yeah.
lot of people miss too on the hospitality demand is like the state of Michigan for how long was pumping money into the Pure Michigan campaign, and it was very effective. Like that was used as an example all the time as for how to market your state. And it kind of seems like they're like, hey, come look at how beautiful this is. And then they got here and they're like, where do we stay? And I don't think the market reacted as quickly as it should have. And I think that's part of the reason why you see that Northwest Michigan is one of the fastest growing Airbnb markets in the country. But I go up to Tequamanon somewhat frequently. And Paradise has a brand new hotel on Lake Superior, but those kind of venues and those kind of areas, they just finished the hotel there. Like that should have had a hotel like
Years ago.
15 years ago. But I mean, depends on how you view commercializing the outdoors and whatnot. But
So when that first phase starts in September, what's the on paper tentative timeline for full completion of all phases?
That's a good question.
so the construction phase is 18 months for each side. And the second phase should start after 6 months. Construction's staging on the north side, so because we need the parking available for what we're building on the north side. So we'll build the parking structure, stage underneath the parking structure to build the north side. So the south side parking structure needs to be complete.
So we're looking at 2027 full completion, that's fast. Mm-hmm. I think it's fast. So like what approvals are we still waiting for? Like, are we waiting for we got 7
Brownfield.
more people or organizations to say, yeah, you can do this. Yes, you can do this. Here's funding for this. Here's funding for this. Now you guys can go.
Yeah, so that was one note that was made about Q3. That's our goal, that's our expectation. That's also assuming that we are able to get approval in a reasonable time period on the Brownfield plan, Act 381 work plan.
And what does
So-
that entail for those that don't know what brownfield is?
Yeah. You want me to explain the whole
Yep.
Brownfield plan?
Yes, get in the nitty gritty. He's
Getting
good at this.
Getting the nuts and bolts, Tyler.
Yep.
So a brownfield is a defined geographic area, right, around a parcel of land or multiple parcels of land. And before the project starts, you freeze the taxable value where it is currently, right? And then you come in and you invest in a project like this, that's $70, $80 million project. That creates a huge increase in the taxable value,
Yeah.
right? So you're frozen here, the investment happens, now your income's here. That in between is captured by the brownfield. And then reimbursed for, with the brownfield, it's reimbursement back to the developer for environmental remediation, and anything environmental related, asbestos during the demo, things like that. Deep water, deep foundations on the north side, where it's right on the edge by the river. But there's significant amount of contamination in that area with dry cleaners, with there were underground storage tanks leaking where Cadillac Plumbing and Heating was. And then there was actually what was considered an orphan tank at the House of Flavors site, which meant that there had been a environmental assessment done. They said, great, everything's good. And then when they came back, found everything, it wasn't all good.
Contaminated, yeah.
There was a tank left behind. So, and then the other corner was a gas station, and that has a plume from, when Blarney Castle had that. So, Manistee in general, all down River Street, T always says, everything has contamination.
Contamination.
I mean, there were
Yep.
car dealerships down here back in the day, which is wild to think about. But yeah, all kinds of that kind of shit. I mean, this is where everything happened, so this is where everything was going to be. But
When I worked in the city of Owasso, there was a dry cleaners, and the environmental consultant said if you pulled the dirt out of the ground and set it on a metal park bench, it would melt the metal park bench.
Oh, well.
So, yeah, dry cleaners
That's the level
have
of
some-
contamination.
But the contamination here is not as bad as it was at that site in Owasso.
Yeah.
I do want to make that clear. But dry cleaners they aren't a joke when it comes to environmental problems. That's another thing, though, that the project is doing for the community, right? It's cleaning up the environment underneath it.
so is that the linchpin then, the brownfield? Waiting for that?
That's where we were at.
That's
Okay.
where you're at currently.
So,
right.
so we do the investment capture that I was explaining what it reimburses for, but it also reimburses for public infrastructure. There'll be water mains, roads, different things like that are addressed in the plan. But the brownfield doesn't capture just city taxes. It captures all the millages on that parcel, which includes the county and a good amount of the state taxes. So those taxing jurisdictions vote on, so the DDA has to vote on the brownfield plan, the brownfield authority has to vote on the brownfield plan, the city has to vote on the brownfield plan, and then the Michigan Strategic Fund will vote on the brownfield plan. And that's where it could take the longest, is the Michigan Strategic Fund. So,
Slow-moving wheels of government.
yeah,
6 to 9 month process. Usually.
the brownfield plan, and at the same time, the Michigan Strategic Fund would be considering their grant application for the Community Reinvestment Program, or CRP grant.
And what's that?
That's the MEDC's main grant program. For anytime you see an MEDC sign on the building, it's likely from CRP. But with new federal legislation, our ARPA funds are coming out. Be prepared for the ARPA funds.
So
Get prepared.
aside from bank funding, do you know how much money is coming from these types of things like grants and government
Yes.
funding?
Yeah. So to submit for the the funding at the stage we're at, we needed a soft commitment from a bank to finance the construction. So we have a soft commitment for the south side, and that's basically says if you're able to satisfy the terms that you have, proposed or projected as far as other parts of the capital stack, we'll say, then they would finance the project, right?
So like city's on board, DDA's on board,
They haven't voted yet.
get your shit together. When's that vote going down, do you know?
I'm on the DDA board, and
Inside baseball?
I have not heard.
But you need those approvals before you can move with anything.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's gotta go in front of council and all that good stuff. So that'll be fun. I'll go to that meeting. That should be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fun. There was something else that I feel like I had missed that I wanted to make sure we touched on. Well, all that's sticking out to me right now is that on the restaurant side, we didn't talk about how I know there's demand there, but
Yeah, I
the
do wanna know that,
projected
actually.
consumer spending and demand for restaurants within 30-minute drive time of that intersection is estimated to increase by $13 million by 2027. So that to me leads me to believe that there's a market for more restaurants.
Now, was there any dialogue or thought into changing the way that intersection works? I mean, obviously you've got a bridge there that you can't really mess with, but putting everything that you're putting on the corners, Wahlburger, you've got businesses that are getting ready to open up on the east side of 31 there. Has traffic been taken into consideration?
We've met with MDOT several times, and then in 2027, MDOT is going to be tearing up 31 all the way from 8th Street. I think
Yeah, they wanna
to
make it
like
one lane.
55 or something. One lane, yeah.
So with all that shit going on in the corners there,
Yeah,
gonna
it'll
have
be
one lane.
a one-way. Yeah, that's what I heard.
One way? Come on now,
How would that
dude.
even work?
People take what you say seriously.
No, it's not
No,
gonna
they
be a
talked
one-way.
about putting in like a left-hand turning lane or something right there.
But it's not as simple as you would think, because it's like, yeah, just put in a left-hand turn lane, and then you have to put a left-hand turn lane in the other direction, and then,
They should put a roundabout there. That would,
I'm all for roundabouts.
yeah, I'm down with roundabouts.
Yeah, one time in college, I watched our professor put on a YouTube video of these intersections in Europe where they don't have anything. It's just stripes and it's just watch out,
That's nuts.
But everybody watches out when they gotta watch out.
I do too. The roundabout up by the resort is can be the Wild West sometimes, but
Yeah.
but-
It says yield, and everybody just,
I do know
Going.
that MDOT's going to be reaching out to the community, trying to get input on,
The traffic
how
and
they
stuff.
want, like, road diets and whatnot. So,
you see no negative impact to the restaurant industry by adding 2 more spots for people to eat. I don't, but
I view restaurants
restaurateur.
as synergistic, same with hotels. I'm sure there's a market saturation point, but the data that I was mentioning, have a gap of 13 million. A lot of communities, like I grew up in Grand Haven, their data shows that they're beyond their market demand. And they keep adding restaurants and adding more restaurants. Why? Because when you go somewhere where there's a lot of activity and there's multiple restaurants to go to, you like being there. You want to go there and you spend more money there. So I think the more opportunities and options people have,
the better.
the better, and the more that it's going to drive more people to come. So it's about growing the size of the pie, not trying to argue about what little splits of the pie we get.
If we go back to the beginning, these are just some things that just pop in my head as we keep going here. What is is everybody on board I'm sorry, speaking about the tribe. Everybody's good to go, signed off on everything. Everybody's happy with the current state of the plans, and we're moving forward.
I wouldn't say everybody, but yes, I would say we're moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how, you get a lot of people in one room trying to decide something. There's going to be a handful that.
But a lot of, I think,
are
tribal
opposed.
citizens think that a lot of the funding that is being used to, I guess, build the project is coming from, I guess, casino revenues. I think there's a misconception there.
I think a lot of people just in the community just think that it's all coming from.
Right, and it's
casino
not.
revenue,
Yeah,
but
the
obviously, but-
attitude kind of is like, why can't they just do this, or why can't they do, like, we are a for-profit company,
Mhm.
and we're measured on our returns, and we have high expectations of our performance, and we wouldn't be where we are if we kept just bleeding money into a project without approvals and such. So, in real estate, you get to a point where you spend X amount of equity, and then you need to get your financing on and have the bank start covering some of those expenses instead of your cash. We're at that point, so.
Right. No, I think something else I was going to bring up there. You took me off track there for a hot second, but
Did you want to touch base on, like, the businesses that were down there before, I guess, the buildings were demolished?
Yeah.
yeah, we're not bringing back House of Flavors, folks.
Yeah, well, and, I mean, I don't know how much you're aware of or not, and I don't think the public knows at all, or understands at all, is that, because, House of Flavors just one day put out a Facebook message that said, we're closing because of the Gateway Project, so sorry, folks, the Gateway Project's kicking us out. And then the Manistee News Advocate picked that up and ran that Facebook story like it was verified truth there, without, a single conversation or a phone call to fact check their social media source there. House of Flavors was already leaving, and they were already leaving for at least a year in advance of when they left. They notified Little River Holdings. We were in multiple conversations with the owner. We tried to include House of Flavors in the development. We said, how could we, move it around and have you come locate in a space?
Really?
So we tried to keep House of Flavors in the community. We never gave them notice to close either. So that was a 100% House of Flavors ownership decision on to close, and how that business conducts itself as far as notifying their employees or jumping on Facebook to pass responsibility on to somebody else. That's their business. But
As the kids would say, Tyler's dropping a little bit of skibbity right now.
Skibbity. You forgot the toilet.
Yeah, I had a conversation with my 9-year-old this morning. I'm like, they don't really say toilet, do they? And she's like, oh yeah.
Yes, they do.
But that whole situation was a large impetus in getting the Gateway Project going. So the House of Flavors building, I don't know if we all remember, was not in the best shape,
Condition, yeah.
and needed. Little River Holdings had to replace the walk-in coolers at one point, and then the power to the building kept surging and damaging
So just so people
equipment.
know, like, it wasn't owned by the actual people that ran the place, correct? Or was it? Like, when you say Little River Holding had to come in and do all this work,
We were the landlords.
you were the landlords. So you guys own the property.
We rented it.
Yeah,
We rented it to House of Flavors.
right.
So making some repairs that, questionable whether they're tenant or landlord. But anyway, there had to be massive, like a good amount of improvements to that building. The roof was bad. There's a number of
Sure.
things. Go walk through the building at the time. I'm sure anybody that had worked there at some point in their life understood what I'm saying. But needed massive amount of upgrades, and the current tenants leaving, and our neighbors, an empty gas station, empty dry cleaners, and so we're sitting there, and what do you do there? Either you continue pouring money into it, you sell the land, or which that's not an option in this position, and then the other one is, invest to do something that's going to bring a greater return on the investment, and that's how the whole thing got kicked off.
That's wild. So who spearheaded the initial, like, hey, we should do a hotel and we should do a restaurant and we should do this and we should do that? That's interesting to me. Like, where did it come from?
So, oh, I remember now.
I feel like it's Tyler.
So I was the DDA director at one point, and MSU did those renderings of what that intersection could look like and whatnot. And we were at the developer day that the chamber had. What year would that have been? 2009? 18? No, 19. Summer of 2019 at the North Channel Brewery. And then the MEDC invited CL Real Estate, which they do some property development. They have a project in Hillsdale and Peru, Illinois, just outside Chicago. And they were looking to do investments in the state of Michigan, so MEDC invited them to Developer Day. They weren't interested in like the small little projects that were being shown, and we were introduced to them and talked to them from there, and then we had a joint venture agreement at one point with them, and the studies and what the market data at that time is what led us down that path, because we had also, like I had said, we were looking at doing another hotel project with a flag, middle of the road kind of flag location, and what we were seeing was a demand for hospitality. And just grew from there. Project needs to scale, so it makes sense. So it's financially viable, and then now you have, it's scaled to a pretty large
$80 million project.
extent.
Yeah, which is wild. $80 million. I can't even wrap my head around that.
It's like one of the largest developments Manistee County has experienced since the casino.
Probably. Well,
Or the
Hampton
prison,
Inn was
maybe,
a good
was
amount.
a big
too,
one.
Well, there's one.
What about land use currently? I mean, I know that we're kind of way ahead of the game in terms of you guys are planning on breaking ground here in the next year. But a lot of people, myself included, have always been like, well, why can't you utilize the land now for something before you build, like food truck court, or make it parking or a green space for people to utilize when they're downtown, especially in like the summer and shoulder months, instead of just leaving it vacant. I think that's one of the biggest frustrations is those ridiculous banners down there. It's just like, we get it, there's something coming, but there's nothing here. Mm-hmm. And it's been that way for a few years now.
And we did explore different options and what we could do in the meantime while the land was vacant, but you kind of have to be careful because of the contamination down there, so there's only so many things you can do, and then there's no water or electricity accessible down there either. So we did explore the food truck option, and it was basically you had to be like a self-sustaining food truck. You
Sure.
had to have your own
Generators.
water and generator and stuff like that. And I worked on it for quite a while, and I was getting some interest, but then it kind of just fell through because the whole electricity and whatnot. So, and then people were finding, I guess, better locations down at the beach or wherever. So,
Well, and there's contamination on that site, like I had gone over
Right.
in pretty good detail. So we have due care obligations as a brownfield facility. So it wouldn't be legal for us to even just allow people to willy-nilly, go through the property, so.
It's a liability. You got, even if you did have food trucks there, I mean, if they had children and they were to like ingest something or even just be barefoot, then something was to happen later on.
Don't
they could,
say that.
Stay off the land, folks.
well, you never know. I mean,
It'll grow a 6.
it's not much worse than melting the plastic on the the bench.
But
I mean, that's where I'm at. I mean, I think we've covered a lot here. I'm glad to know that there's a official start date, as long as everything gets checked. All the government entities say, "Yep, you're good to go." So
City and
get it-
state, yep.
Yep, say get after it. It's nice to hear that there's going to be some pretty substantial tax revenue for the city. Jobs are coming, housing is coming. I mean, another place for somebody to eat some cow is cool, So, is there anything that needs to be touched on? I mean, you've got a pile of notes. I mean, I think there was
I'm
know,
sure we missed something along the way, but
tourism and jobs is always the big one, and I think that's been pretty well discussed here today. I mean, obviously, tourism is growing in this community, and like it or not, that's just kind of the way this community is built. It's built on the backs of tourists and small business owners.
well, and tourism is considered a contributory business segment. So it is one industry that literally brings in money from the outside of the community and brings it into your community. That's a net positive. Are there lower paying jobs in hospitality industry? Sure. But when people bring up that kind of logical fallacy, it's unrelated to the project. That they're not good jobs in hospitality, because we're not sitting here stopping any other jobs for.
Right.
We're not like, hey, manufacturer, don't bring your $75,000 job here. No, they're unrelated, and the city doesn't have control over everything. We live in a capitalist society, that it always is a fascinating aspect to community and public discourse to me. Is the city? Why is the city doing that? Why is the city choosing that?
I mean, obviously, you have a pretty good crop of potential employees because of the size of the tribe. So, I mean, that should help fill those positions. I just feel like a lot of those positions are already filled someplace else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that is an age category, whether people want to hear that or not. I mean, they're, for the most part, these are like, I'm just getting my first new job. For a lot of those positions. Obviously, there's going to be, a tiered management system where, it's going to lift somebody from who's probably doing something similar with another company. They can now come over and perhaps be a supervisor or manager or something like that, which is great, and it provides more growth that way. And hospitality management is a tough gig.
Well, and corporate franchising, when you look at like franchise business consultants and different things like that, there's more opportunities than I was even aware of that are decent, pretty good paying jobs.
Yeah.
Actually, you get high up in corporate franchising, you're making millions. But
Right.
I don't know. But the one thing I forgot to mention that I really wanted to tell you was that
We'll put this at the beginning.
all the data that I'm getting is from cell phone and credit card data. We have software that tracks all that information. So I could like literally put a polygon around your building right here and be able to tell you what kind of TV shows you like to watch.
I got a VPN, and I don't want you to.
I don't want to be there.
You're not looking in on my shit.
Well,
though.
I love looking at that data because it gives you like a market segment, and it tells you like income, household, whatnot, and then it tells you like what these people like to do for fun
and their foot traffic
and how to
and
market
where
to
they
them and how
shop
to what
and-
like
Yeah, that's super important data, even on a smaller scale with like the races like last year's Run the Pier. Sammy helped me out from the visitor center with doing some, geographic looking at that. And it was wild to see the amount of people that came and their age group and their income level and all that shit. It was just like, whoa, what an impact one day did, so.
Have you ever read those little market report things?
No.
Of the market segments? They have like fun, jazzy names to them. I think singles and starters is one. So.
Yeah, like boomers and something.
So then it'll tell you this kind of stuff, and then it gets into the deeper weeds here, but then it will say things like, this is a millennial audience, they're open to online advertising, whatever. These consumers want to see novelty brands that position themselves as unique, having a variety of products or services to fit any need or want, keep their life stage in mind, they're entry-level professionals. But it goes on to say like they're status seeking. It even tells you that this group, they like to wear the latest styles and search for designer labels, and from chains like Burlington Coat Factory, Express, and Forever 21.
Forever 21. Okay.
Where is Forever 21? But yeah, it just,
Grand Rapids has one.
it's that uncomfortable level data of what's going on in the area that helps us to see there's an opportunity there.
So, to speak to opportunities quick before we wrap this up, where do you see that's going, once this project is finished, how do you see the landscape from that development west and east of River Street, how do you see it evolving and changing? Do you positively? I don't think there's really going to be any negative. I can't foresee anything negative happening, but in terms of like growth for business potential, filling up properties that are currently vacant, and so forth.
Yeah, I think that we're going to experience, like you just said, vacancies will be filled, maybe like facelifts on some of these buildings, and then I'd like to see some heated sidewalks.
I was really pushing for that.
I know
on
you
the-
were,
on the
dog.
board. But it's hard to say because we're built up communities now. Like there's a lot of green space available to build on in the downtown area. But 120 people living downtown is a lot of people, and especially when we say 32,000 visitors. I just ran the data on how many visitors they got west over here. It's well over that number of unique phones that go through that geofence. So I think that's a realistic number. And when you think about 32,000 people annually, ever since the Hampton Inn opened, I feel like downtown's busier.
There was an impact for sure, a positive
Yeah,
impact.
it-
An influx of
noticeable.
people. There were people that were coming when I still had the liquor store. There were people that were coming in that were saying, "We're only here because of that hotel."
Mm-hmm.
We came to Manistee. This is our first time here because of that hotel, and they're spending dollars downtown. You might have touched on this already, but the 120 potential people moving in downtown, obviously, that's just fun. You're just speaking individually. I mean, they could have families or whatever.
Well,
moving
that's
into-
an estimated number based on the number of units. 1.2 people per unit
unit.
is what you project for
In that,
people to live
do you
in.
have like an idea of age category? I mean, obviously, with some of the data that you have, and the only reason why I say that is there was a time, I think it was no, you weren't on the DDA at this time, but I think it was like during COVID, they were talking about putting in some housing down on the west side of River Street that was going to be more senior focused, and the argument was that those people were going to be shopping downtown, and I was more in the camp of that probably not, because if it's a certain that age
Demographic.
category, that senior living category, they're leaving to do two things. Let's go to Walgreens to get their prescriptions, go to Family Fare or Meijer to get their groceries, or somebody's bringing it to them, and they're not really coming downtown and spending their the income that they're living on.
Mm-hmm. honestly, I don't expect 47 units to significantly impact the market in that way. It's going to be a lot of the same current renters that we
Yeah.
currently have in the market, right? So they're going to be the thriving boomer group, or what is it, Families in Motion group, or the Singles
don't
and
see that.
Starters group.
Yeah, I was thinking more singles and starters. I was thinking a younger, higher earning.
There's just not a
resident.
significant amount of those people, but let me get my stuff out. So income groups with income ranges from $50,000 to $75,000 household income, which that's going to be, or projected to be, the fastest growing income segment. You have the autumn years folks, which are 65 plus. We sell that same segment of people homes at our subdivision in Odenville, and they buy 2-bedroom, 1-bath ranches with no stairs because they're elderly and they don't want stairs. And then you got the blue sky boomers, which are your 50 to 65-year-olds. And then you have
Christ, that's almost me.
47,
47,
you have
dude.
your
Blue sky boomer.
pastoral pride people, which are 46 to 50-year-olds. So those three groups right there make up, I can tell you in 1 second,
80%?
55% of our population.
Is what group?
Ages 46 and up,
That makes sense.
with average median household incomes between $50,000 and $75,000. So I can even tell you what percentage of those populations are renters. So they've got thriving boomers. 15% of thriving boomers are renters.
Renters.
4% of the singles and starters, but only 4% of the singles and starters population is in Manistee. That comes out to 603 people.
Okay.
It's not a lot of people to
No.
base your whole business plan off of.
Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is
But
there
that's
gonna-
people falling into that specific, like, income bracket, age, but also interest and such. So, like, they like to go do yoga and drink coffee. I don't know.
I like to do
It
that.
might not, might not be you, might be you. Who knows? I don't know.
It could be. Is there going to be travel preference on housing there?
It's
Or
grant
is it
funded again, so
wide open?
we have to follow the rules and regulations of the grant.
Very good. I don't know if there's necessarily a great place to stop, but if there's anything else that you guys want to make sure that gets heard, I feel like I've expressed what I can for what people wanted to hear.
I feel like I probably bored a good amount of your audience.
No. I'm going to spice this shit up. Well, I think this is a great opportunity to really do something amazing for Manistee. Open up that section of River Street. It's really going to draw more and more people here. And, there's a pretty big category of people. I shouldn't say big category. There is a category of people that don't want change. And I think I tend to lean more on the positive side of things. At least as I get older, I want I want to be a little bit more positive. And I've been waiting for this to happen, dude, since this first came to as an idea. It's like I'm so impatient with this shit, which is why I can never be on any fucking boards. Right? 'Cause I'm like, come on, we got
Get it done.
we got to get moving. What are we waiting for? But it's nice to know that the process is rolling. Just need a few things to finish up, and we can get started on it.
Well, I think the only other thing that we mentioned, not to drag it out, but was that, people, why did the project like start and then stop,
Yeah, well, that's a great question.
But we had demolition grant funding from Eagle, then, so
Had to use it.
you have to use the grant funding. And then we also made changes to our project team that led to some redesign of the entire project in 2022, based on feedback we were getting from the MEDC. But regardless, we had the funding specifically for demolition and some environmental cleanup. And there's been environmental activity going on there that, the community just doesn't notice.
I notice. I see people out there working. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I'm always watching, Brittany. I'm always watching.
Always watching.
Anyway, I just want to mention that, and the fact that all the other businesses that moved out, that were relocated out of there or, moved on, as far as I am aware, they've either opened successfully, like Memory Lane Detailing. I don't think if you went and talked to Lane, he would have a bad thing to say about his experience with us. Or they're moved on from the community and they're happy about their situation.
Sure.
So, we weren't kicking doors down to get people out of
Get out of there,
get out of the town. So.
No. Hey, good job.